Hello everyone, welcome to Software Testing Expert Talk series. Today we have a guest who has 22 plus years of experience in software development and testing in IT industry so far. Plus, he is handling a role of Chief DevOps Evangelist at one of the most prestigious organizations across the world. He is a renowned, influential blogger, inventor, and international speaker at global conferences like Starries, StarWest, DevOps, West, Eurostar, Android Summit, and lot more. He owns a blog named as Continuous Testing.blog, where he specially keeps blogs related to continuous testing, DevOps, static code analysis principles, and best practices. Not only this much in his introduction, he is also an author of multiple books named as the Digital Quality Handbook, Continuous Testing for DevOps Professionals, Accelerating Software Quality with AI and ML. Yes, our guest is none other than Eran Kinsbruner. Welcome to our show, Eran.
Thank you, Ajay, and welcome. I'm excited to be in this show. Thank you for inviting me. What are we going to talk about today?
Today, Eran Kinsbruner will take us through mobile testing fundamentals. Plus, he will be talking over mobile testing on real versus virtual devices as well. Let's directly hear from him. Over to you, Eran.
Thank you. So let's start. And what I'm going to talk to you today, as Ajay mentioned, is walk you through some mobile testing fundamentals, the basics of mobile testing on real virtual devices, what's happening around us in the mobile space. As Ajay mentioned, I'm a DevOps evangelist at Perfecto, which is a performance company. But if you do want to follow me and continue the conversation after this session, feel free to follow me and get in touch with me over Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm available on all these channels. So let's start with what's happening around us in the mobile space. And few things are happening. With the rise of application app clips from iOS and Android APKs through PWAs, progressive web applications, foldable smartphones, new frameworks for testing such as Cypress and Flutter, we see that the mobile testing is becoming more and more complex. In today's session, I'm going to focus on the fundamentals, but you do want, as a practitioner, to know a bit about the application app clips, the subset of iOS applications that you can install through the Safari browser or a barcode without really needing to go to the App Store. Android APKs, these are Android zip files, bundles that Google is mandating to be supported by August this year. So any Android developer that is listening here or tester needs to be aware of this new file template that is mandated by Google. Progressive web are the new wave of responsive web, but very, very related to mobile. So it's a web application that really has native mobile capabilities such as push notification, offline caching, and many other features. Foldable smartphones are not new, but they are emerging and new versions are coming every few weeks. We see that Apple is considering to release an iOS foldable smartphone throughout the next year or so. So it's definitely a reality that is coming to the space. With regards to APKs, to be more specific, and you can look at the link on this slide. Google is providing a launch checklist, but as you can see here, this is not a requirement or a trend. This is a mandatory thing that any Android developer needs to adhere to, meaning you need to support the file format of APKs and really split your Android native application into smaller binaries that will be specific to a device, an operating system, or even a geolocation. So APKs are here and are very important to the mobile space. Obviously, when you talk about APKs, you need to understand what are the benefits. So obviously, when you're talking about smaller binaries, you are dealing with smaller application binary size, which consumes less resources from your device and allows developers to deploy the application to the end user or to specific devices on demand. So if there is a crash, or if there is a very important hotfix that needs to be pushed to production, APKS will allow you to, as you can see on the screen with these two images, to either flexibly update the application or push a mandatory immediate fix to the device itself. So this is kind of a new thing that is coming from Google to the Android landscape, and it is a mandatory thing to support.
Okay.
Same, but a bit different, is the Apple App Clips from iOS 14, as I mentioned, and we are just a few months away from iOS 15 already, but Apple App Clips are a subset of a native iOS application that is being consumed not through the App Store, meaning you can get a link from the Safari browser, or you can scan a QR code, and by that you get think about a game. I think the next slide shows a game, right? You see here the Phoenix 2. So this is a game, and when you can install it from the Safari browser, but you don't install it as a full-blown native application. You just install the first 2 levels of the game without going through the App Store. If you like the game, the application will prompt you to install the native app. So this is kind of a taste of a full application in a simple way that you can download, but the complexity here from a testing perspective is that you can actually consume it either through QR code, NFC tags, the Safari browser, and many other ways. So if you are an application developer, or an iOS application developer, suddenly you need to start considering different flows, user flows, to install the application on these devices on top of the traditional App Store. And you can see here on the screen just a few things to consider when testing app clips, the different operating systems and devices, the network configurations, the browser that you are using to install these app clips, the automation. Okay, we are not just doing manual testing. Obviously, we want to automate. So how do you automate these kind of things? Because this is not a native app, it's kind of a browser-based application. So you need to consider Appium and XUI test as part of your automation tools. Deal with incoming events while you're using this app clip, and many more.
Okay.
Foldables, just a word about them before I dive into the more straightforward mobile testing. These are kind of the add-ons or the more cool things that are happening around us. So foldables are allowing application users, consumers, to enjoy multiple applications, up to 3 applications that can be running in the foreground. And this is unique. Okay, you don't see any other devices today outside of the foldables that can really have, let's say, a navigation app, a banking app, and a messaging app all running in the foreground in parallel at the same time. So the app continuity, the pause and resume of application, these are very specific terms and specific use cases that needs to be taken under account when dealing with foldable smartphones. So these are terms that any developer, any testers in the Android domain needs to be familiar with. And I have a full set of slides and material on testing foldable devices or testing foldable application on foldable devices. So if any of you that are listening are interested to get more depth into this domain, feel free to reach out to me and I can provide even more material. But in a nutshell, these are the 4 buckets that you want to consider other than the traditional mobile application testing specific to foldables. So you want to think about the different apps that are running across different operating systems and different devices. You need to think about the multi-window functionality, because you can resize on a foldable and split the screen into 3 different viewports. You need to think about the memory consumption and the, I would say, competing apps, okay? Because let's think you're running a camera application, and you are running also a retail application that needs to scan something. So suddenly you have two apps running in the foreground that wants to use the camera. Okay, who wins here? You need to understand how to really architect the app and really test for this resource competition, because this is definitely something that is relevant on a foldable smartphone. All the UI layout testing and the on resume, the on pause when you are switching from one app to the next, when you are screening, your screen is moving from from the folder to the unfolded method. These are all really important things that you need to consider.
Okay.
There is no slide for that, but what I've learned from my experience when dealing with foldables over the past few weeks was that accessibility is also a challenge on foldable devices. Think about the UI, all the accessibility ideas that are relevant on your mobile app. Sometimes when you are using a foldable smartphone and you have 2 or 3 apps with different screen sizes and viewports, this gets messed up. So dealing with accessibility on foldable smartphones is also a huge requirement and consideration in your testing.
Okay.
Any questions so far before I dive into the mobile testing overview, Ajay?
So I understood about mobile testing, okay, but in terms of layman, what one should think about, like mobile testing, what it is all around and what they have to check in mobile?
That's a good question. And for that, okay, these are my next 2 slides. I will answer to you in my next 2 slides. If I'm not convincing you, let me know.
For sure.
So when you're talking about mobile testing specifically, you need to understand, okay, what is running on the mobile, because today we are in a very advanced mode. If you were asking me this question 5 or 6 years ago, I would say, yeah, it's easy. We have mobile native, we have mobile web, and that's it. Okay, and we have hybrid applications. Today we have progressive as well, and I mentioned earlier the app clips and the APKs. So suddenly it's not how to test, but actually what you're testing, because there are so many things happening on a mobile device. Earlier today, I spoke with an analyst on super apps. Super apps like WeChat and Alipay and others are also, these are huge transformation activities that we are seeing in the mobile space, because suddenly you have a super app that consists of 6 different services. One of them is the banking app, the other one is retail, and the other one is messaging. So how do you deal with all of these things? So first, you calm down, you relax, you understand that, okay, testing is testing. But you need to understand, once you are dealing with a native application, obviously you need to understand what is the best technology to deal with that application, because native applications can only be tested with native frameworks. Okay, Appium, Espresso, XUI test. If it's a Flutter app, it's a Flutter driver, it's a different technology. So first you need to match the technology to the application type. If it's just web that runs on mobile, it's Selenium, obviously. Or it can be Cypress. Cypress does not support specifically mobile, but Cypress we can play with screen sizes and viewports to actually hack it if we like, but Selenium will be the case here. So first, to your question, is understand the technology that matches the application type, because as you can see on the screen, there are multiple application types. If it's hybrid can be tested by Appium, but you need to understand how you manage the viewports, the iframes, and all the web elements within the native application as well.
Okay. Yeah.
And also, when you're dealing with testing mobile application, you need to understand where you are living, and you are living in a very disrupted, fragmented market. And in any given time over the past decade, you would see that you have at least 5 operating system families on the Android, with 2 or 3 families on iOS. On Android, you see that Android 6, 11, 8, 9, 10, and we are already in beta of Android 12 as we speak. So the Android market share is very fragmented. So you need to also match everything that I said in the previous slide to the different devices and operating system families. Same goes for iOS. iOS 15 is just around the corner, which will also going to disrupt the market.
Okay.
And oh by the way, it's not just the custom OS. Each device manufacturer is actually customizing his operating system. So when you are actually testing a Samsung S20, which runs on Android 10, it's not really Android 10, it's actually One UI 2. If you are dealing with S21, the latest Samsung S21, it actually runs on One UI 3.1, and you see other examples here. So this is why it's so important to deal with devices and operating systems and match these different scenarios across these operating systems, because they are not always like the Google stock OS version that is out there.
Okay.
With that, let's build a test plan for mobile application testing. And this actually is agnostic. If you have a mobile native app or a hybrid app or a Flutter app, it's still relevant. Why? Let's divide it, the testing strategy into 3 pieces. The first one is the functionality. Okay, we care about our consumer experiences, which means we need to make sure that the app functionality works fine. All the business flows, all the user experience elements with landscape portrait across different languages, etc., needs to work. And that's the basic of an app, right? You need to make sure the cross-platform coverage is being dealt, as I mentioned in the previous 2 slides. You need to be always up to date with what happens in the market. Just a week ago, Apple released a new iOS version, and they're going to release a new one after the global worldwide development conference that is coming. So things are changing every time. So you need to make sure that the cross-platform coverage is top of mind. So that's from the layer of the app functionality.
Okay.
The second layer is, okay, our end users are using real devices. They're running the apps on real network conditions, in real network conditions, and they are exposed to different interruptions like incoming calls, text messages, Wi-Fi to 3G, push notifications, security alerts, you name it, right? There are other apps that are running in the background or in the foreground. If it's a testing is the second bucket that you need to deal with, and this is just a subset like network conditions, interruptions, background apps running, and all the gestures that are supported needs to be fully tested on the app. And this is the second layer. The third layer is something that unfortunately, and I don't know, Ajay, if you in the community are hearing more, unfortunately, testers are neglecting or leaving to the end these non-functional testing elements for mobile, which includes security and accessibility and performance. API testing is it's kind of a weird domain because it's in many cases done by developers, and it can be done earlier, but depends on the breadth and depth of the API testing. But security, accessibility, and performance are very critical in mobile testing. And if you're not automating them and shifting them left, running them, together with your regression cycle earlier in the cycle within CI like Jenkins, you are risking inescape defects. And accessibility is becoming very, very important, especially in today's market. So non-functional testing is the third pillar if you are building today a test plan of a mobile app. Ajay, this is the slide. This is the slide in my mind. This is the response to your original question. Okay, how do I test a mobile app? Let's make sure that you have a checkbox on all of these 3 layers from a functionality perspective, environment condition testing, and non-functional testing. If you do that, you're in a good place. It's not the 100% capabilities, but it's good enough to start with.
Okay, quite understood. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Awesome. So people also ask me, because I'm not just author of books, I also write what I call the index report. And this is a guide. It's a free guide that you can download. You just search mobile test coverage index report. You put either my name or Perfecto, and you will find it. It's a PDF. And I'm actually about to release a new version in the upcoming month or so. And this guide recommends across 10 different countries, geographies, which devices and which operating systems and which browsers you should be considering as part of your device lab for testing and development. And I'm taking under consideration the market share and the usage. I'm considering the operating system versions and the screen sizes and parameters. I'm only leaving to the customer the 2 items of usage analytics. I don't know the analytics of a specific customer. So customers should look at their own Google Analytics or other analytics, and also see in their Jira which devices, which defects they have in the history, so they can make sure that they are not neglecting it as part of their regression. But if a customer looks at his track record history and his analytics and combines what I'm providing with the index, he can actually be up to date with the market and make sure that the device lab is always relevant.
Okay.
Let's talk about a bit about the second item for this session, and this is the virtual devices. Virtual devices are emulators and simulators. Usually, simulators are the ones that Apple is providing within the Xcode. Emulators are the Android version of a virtual device. And why are they important? Virtual devices, obviously, you want to make sure that you are testing prior to production, and after feature complete, you're testing only on real devices, because all of the things that I mentioned earlier, all the pitfalls, the background apps, the real network conditions, etc. But virtual devices can be very, very good and useful up until a certain point in your software development life cycle, and they can expand your velocity, the scale, and also the cost. Because obviously virtual devices are much cheaper than real smartphones and tablets. You can therefore scale and run much more of them because they are cheaper. And if they can automate today between 60 and 70% of the use cases of what you can do with a real device. So I think the virtual devices have matured over the past few years with the support of Google and Apple, meaning that if you want to do manual and automated testing or develop your test automation for running on real devices, you can get up to around 70% of all the use cases. Obviously, there are limitations of virtual devices that you cannot overcome only by using real devices. But again, you can get some juice and value out of these virtual devices earlier in your development cycle.
Okay.
These are just few examples of what you can do and what you cannot do with an Android emulator versus an iOS simulator. And I won't go through this entire table because it's long, but I will just give you a taste. So what you're installing and testing on an iOS simulator is usually an app file. Obviously, when you're installing an app on a real iPhone, this is an IPA file. It's a different package. It's a different application.
Right.
Another difference is the push and system notifications that are only supported on Android are not supported on iOS. There are many other differences, and the main purpose of this table is to let you know, well, I've shown you in the previous slide, virtual devices are great. They can help you with velocity and scale and reducing the cost, but they have their own limitations. So to really get an end-to-end testing right, you need to complement them, obviously, with real devices running on real network conditions, with apps running there. Some of these virtual devices cannot even install a Google Play application or an App Store application. So you really want to have this combination, the mix between the two types of platforms. And while you see the logo here, so as mentioned by Ajay, I work for Perfecto. I'm not going to do marketing because it's not my domain. But in Perfecto, what I'm seeing with my few customers is that they are actually doing the mix and match. They are using both simulators and emulators up until the certain level of their development process, and then they're switching solely to real devices, real smartphone, real tablets in different geographies to maximize the coverage and really assess the end user condition and experience.
Okay.
This is exactly what I've just said. So this is a few of my customers. This is how they would actually divide the mix of real and virtual devices throughout the entire pipeline. I've said it, this is just kind of a visual to complement my previous message. But as you shift to the right, you can see here that it's mostly real devices to really get the real feedback and the relevant feedback.
Right. Okay.
this is just I'll leave it behind, but this is just again few examples, few things that you know, differentiate the real world and the virtual world. With that, let's see. Again, I won't dive into that slide, but I do want right now, with your permission, Ajay, to show a short demo. Okay,
Yeah,
a short demo of Appium. Let's move to the IDE. So this is the Intellij IDE. This is a standard Appium project. Okay, and in the Appium project, what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually use virtual devices this time. I'm going to take an expense tracker application. You know, you are traveling when you're not under pandemic. You can travel and you can send some expense reports through a mobile app. So this is a mobile app that allows you to send expense receipts and you know, whatever. And this has two classes. This project has two classes. One of them is for Android, and you can see here I am uploading to the Perfecto cloud the APK native application, and I'm selecting. Obviously, I have the security token here, and I'm going to the cloud, and I'm selecting a Pixel 4 running on Android 11. But I'm selecting use virtual device true, which means this is not going to run on a real device, it's going to run on a virtual device. If this parameter was false, I would run it on a real smartphone in the cloud. I'm doing the exact same thing here, but this is running on a simulator on iOS. And for iOS, as I mentioned, it's an app or a zip file, it's not an IPA. And I'm uploading here the application to the cloud. I'm selecting an iOS Apple iPhone 11 running on iOS 14.3. And here again, I'm using use virtual device as true. And you can see here, I'm logging in to the app with this credential, this password, and making sure that I'm logged in. That's a very simple test. It's driven through TestNG, Maven project, Java, Appium. So I'm clicking here, run. And once I'm clicking here, you will see that two WebDriver instances are being created for iOS and for Android. And I can actually go to my browser, and I can actually see here in the live stream, I'm actually going to filter just by my name because I'm the one running. And with Eran K, this is my name. Actually, I think I'm connected here. No, that's not the right portal. Let me go here. That's the right portal. And I hope I didn't miss it. Yeah. You see here, Eran K, you see the device. So that's a bit small, but that's the iPhone, iOS device. You see here, I was using Apple iPhone 11 with iOS 14.3. This is the time, and it's running the test to the expense tracker. I can actually refresh the report, and you can see here that a report is now being generated, native Java simulator for iOS iPhone 11, and the Google Pixel 4 is still running. Okay, the test is still running, but once it's done, and I will have the green link here, we can actually see, I'll just refresh to see that the report is, okay. You see that the report is created, it was very fast. Let's just pick the iPhone, for example, and you can see here the Appium script, okay? I was going to the find element, and I was looking for the login email, etc. We can actually go to the video, to the recording, and we see that I'm putting the test Perfecto, I'm putting the password, and I'm in the app. It was a very short test.
Okay.
But this was for iOS. I had the same thing for Android. You can see it here. And if I wanted to run it on a real device, I was just selecting a real device without this configuration. And you can see here that we have this mix of all mobile devices. These are real devices. We have virtual devices. We have browsers like Chrome. And you can see here Mac or Windows with different browser configurations. If you're running Selenium, you would run Selenium on these browsers from your Intellij or Eclipse or other IDEs. But that's basically the platform and how you would use it to run test automation. With that short demo, I want to leave time, Ajay, for questions. So whatever questions that you might have, I'm ready to answer them.
Great. That was a wonderful session, Eran, and very knowledgeable for people who do not know about anything about mobile testing. Okay, coming to questions. So, why in today's scenario, mobile testing skills are really important, Eran?
I think that even after 2020, with the pandemic, the entire industry, whoever wasn't digital, became digitally overnight. So we see today that almost every business, small business, medium or large, at least have one digital asset. And you know, even if it's not a native app and it's a responsive web app runs on mobile. So I think that we are now in a place in the industry that no one really actually differentiates between web and mobile. It's digital and it runs on web for 1 minute and then it moves to the mobile. The journey can move between these different platforms. So both are equal. Mobile is obviously the leading platform in the market today, used by so many organizations, and it's just actually ramping up. We see the advancements. I spoke earlier on Flutter and app clips and foldable smartphones. So it's just maturing and advancing as we speak.
Okay, fine. Okay, coming to next question. So how many types of mobile testing are available in the market?
I think I wouldn't give you a number. I would just list them to you. Obviously, mobile has unique scenarios, but mobile does not invent a lot of the testing types, because for web applications you have API testing, you have functional testing, you have accessibility testing, you have performance testing. All of these testing types still apply, and unit testing, integration testing, interoperability testing, all of these testing types are generic and apply to mobile as well. There are differences because of the nature of mobile. So accessibility testing, performance testing, functional testing will obviously be much different on mobile than on web or desktop. So the testing types are in many cases very, very similar, but the scenarios and the use cases are very, very unique in the mobile space.
Okay, got it. Coming to next question. So relatively, how can we say, like, I would say, in what terms mobile testing is different from web testing? How can we say that?
So mobile in general, since it's obviously using a very different hardware than a desktop, web is running on hardware like Intel processor and others. Still, obviously, the hardware on a mobile device has become very, very strong and solid over the past few years, but still the screen size, the resolution, the hardware, the memory, the battery, these are all constraints that you don't have on web and you need to account for. The parallel applications running, or the amount of applications that are running on mobile, have much more impact on your application under test when you are compared to when you are running on a laptop or a PC. When you're running on a PC and you have your web application that you are testing, okay, you can have the Outlook running and the Intellij and so many other things. It wouldn't bother. But when you're testing a mobile application and you have 20 other apps running in parallel, and you might get an incoming call or a text message or a push notification, and sometimes the network connection drops, you are exposed to much more noise and interruptions that really are different than a desktop web or other applications.
Yeah, that makes sense and perfectly fine as well. Okay, coming to next question. So in today's era, how many types of mobile apps are available in the market?
So there are, I would say, at least five types of mobile applications today. You have the native applications, and under native, I put also the app clips and the APKs because they are a subset of the native. You have mobile web applications, which are an extension of the web. You have hybrid applications. You have progressive web applications, and then you have Flutter applications. So you have five types of apps. Flutter are unique because they can run on both mobile, web, and desktop. So you have one app that you write in JavaScript, or actually it's Flutter, which is Dart language, and this runs across so many different platforms. So five, this is the number as of today. Maybe in a year from now you'll have six, but right now you have five types of mobile applications.
Great. Okay. Coming to next question, what different mobile test automation frameworks can be used to test mobile application?
That's a great question, and I think that's what I would say the million-dollar question, because obviously technologies, we are not lacking technologies today. We have so many open source frameworks and technologies, but you need to make sure that, as you asked earlier, what types of application we have. So we have 5 types of applications, and then you need to ask who is doing the testing, whether it's the developer or the test automation engineer. So you need to make sure that you are matching the frameworks to the application types, to the technology skill set and the persona. And in such, developers typically would use Espresso for Android application testing, and iOS developers would use XUI test. Test automation engineer, which are doing mostly functional testing end-to-end, would use Appium, as I demonstrated earlier, because Appium can test across platforms and do much more functional end-to-end testing. There are also frameworks such as Flutter that I mentioned earlier, which are very specific to Flutter apps. And there is Appium with BDD, with Cucumber, that I think is, I can tell you that at least 70 customers of mine are using today BDD with Quantum. So with Cucumber. Quantum is the framework, that's the open source technology. So if you want to do BDD, 𝐍𝐿𝐿 style, you can do it with Appium also on mobile. So these are the main frameworks for mobile: Appium, Espresso, XUI test, Flutter, and Cucumber BDD.
Okay, understood. Okay, coming to next question. So Eran, we know that you have a blog on continuous testing name. Okay, so what is continuous testing and why this term is in hype these days? And could you explain it in a layman term, and why is it essential?
This is definitely essential. I wrote in my 3 books about continuous testing because I think it's important. Continuous testing is, in my mind, the process. It's not the tool. And I'm not talking about numbers. I'm not talking about tools when I'm talking about continuous testing. I'm talking about the process of validating code changes as soon as possible to mitigate business risks. And you can do it, and obviously you can do it continuously and with much greater efficiency if you do it with test automation. So there were a lot of comments when I was defining continuous testing about, okay, test automation is not continuous testing. No, test automation enables continuous testing process, but it's not the process itself. Test automation is just the mean to the end of validating these constant changes to your application as soon as possible to mitigate business risks, to learn new insights and explore the app upon each changes that are happening. So, and obviously when we are dealing with mobile, and this session is mostly on mobile, even if the application hasn't changed in a week or two, and you have a new operating system release like iOS 14.6 that was recently released, or a new Android 12 beta, you need to test it to understand if nothing is broken in your app by this new operating system. So continuous testing is the process of validating changes as soon as possible, and test automation drives efficiency in this continuous testing process.
Okay, quite understood. Okay, coming to next question. Based on your vast experience, what issues do people face during continuous testing, and what should one do to stabilize those issues?
This is a very great question, and I can spend even more than an hour just to discuss that. But in a nutshell, the challenges that we see are around few things. The first one is the skill set. Test automation engineers, as bright as they are, need to always continuously improve their skill set because technologies around us are changing. I mentioned in my session earlier, PWA and Apks and APKS and Flutter and progressive web. Technologies are changing, so the test automation engineers needs to also sharpen their skill set to move alongside the technology advancements, because skill set is a barrier to automate advanced scenarios. The second challenge is the quality visibility. What I mean by quality visibility is understanding what is noise versus what is a real issue. And as you do continuous testing, you are generating so many test data. You are doing so many test cases. You have thousands or few thousand test scenarios. You need to understand very quickly what is noise and what is the real bug, and you need to trust your test automation suite. If you are not aware, if you don't have the proper visibility, the logs, the screenshots, the reporting, etc., it's going to take you too much time to deliver value to your organization. So skill set and quality visibility are huge challenges. And the other challenge in the mobile space specifically is the size of the space, right? You have so many different devices and operating systems to cover. So how do you choose what to cover? That's a third challenge that I can talk about.
Understood. That makes sense, right? Okay. So Eran, what do you think? What are the challenges in testing present out in enterprise organization, and how does continuous testing helping in resolving them in enterprise organizations?
So enterprise organizations are unique in the sense that A, they are very big, and B, they have so many different types of applications. So making kind of a centralized continuous testing strategy a reality is one of the greatest challenges, because each individual would kind of push to his own unique belief, and really standardizing on a good testing strategy that fits the entire enterprise organization that can be delivered across the different applications. That's one challenge. The second challenge, again, because of the scale and everything, is that sometimes you have still siloed teams. You have the developers doing what they want, the product owners and managers doing what they know, and the testers are actually waiting for a new build for days just to understand what they need to automate. And this takes too much time. So the lack of collaborations and synchronization within an enterprise is also a huge challenge that we are seeing, that also reflects on the selection of technologies. Sometimes you would see so many different teams using so many different technologies instead of using one that fits everything, just because they're not really communicating with each other.
Okay, fine. So coming to the next question, Eran. So as we have seen a slide where you have talked about difference between real and virtual devices. So what advice one should consider while performing testing on those devices, whether it's on emulator, simulator, or a real device, and providing sign-off to the project?
So I think, especially when we are dealing with continuous testing, you need to be very aware of the code changes. We are dealing with a market that is already in a 2 or 3 weeks release cadence. So the time that testers have today is just becoming shorter and shorter. So you need to be very smart, very strategic into what you are automating, what you are running per each section, and using virtual devices in parallel with real devices can help you be strategic, because you can definitely split the high value test cases to run on virtual devices that are much faster. You can do more parallel testing in a cost efficient way, and then do the final regression suite across real devices and do more performance and user experience and UI testing on these real devices. So splitting the target platforms and the test cases, and it's, by the way, it's not a one time thing. You need to do it continuously, because each build has obviously different content, and you are touching different areas of the app between these builds. But from a strategic perspective, using real devices, virtual devices throughout the SDLC, and matching the test types to the code changes. And you need to know, you need to be in the know of the Jira tickets, the story points that are coming into this build, so you can decide what comes in, what goes out. You cannot automate everything, and you shouldn't run everything per each build. So that's in a very high level how I would address this question.
Okay, understood. Okay, so Eran, what opportunities do software testers has in today's era compared to developers? These, yeah.
Oh, that's I love this question, and one of the reasons that I wrote my third book about accelerating software quality with AI and machine learning was the exact this exact question. I think that today organizations have the freedom to choose between code-based technologies, low code, and no code, what we call scriptless or codeless. And I think specifically in testing, and testing is one of the most challenging item in software development lifecycle. Today's testers have opportunities to pick between AI and machine learning driven solutions, codeless tools to really either close gaps in their skill set or just do testing much faster. These codeless tools can automate without writing code through record and playback with self-healing and other capabilities. And this, I've done some research, brings you 6 to 10 times faster to creating a single scenario if you would do it in Selenium or Appium. So think about testers that can finish their test development 6 times faster or earlier. It allows them to provide feedback much faster to the developers, to the organizations, making them high value contributors to the process. So this is, in my mind, the biggest advancement that I've seen over the past few years. The test impact analysis with AI, the AI in testing with low code and no code. These are the huge things that testers should be focusing on and embrace.
Okay, got it. So just a normal question here, like regarding skill of good tester. So what do you think, what skills a good tester should have in current marketing trends?
I think few skill sets. The first one is obviously creativity. Testers need to think outside of the box. They need to think like the end users, but also take the end users to the extreme. Therefore, again, being creative, having exploratory capabilities is a great skill to have if you are a tester. The second skill is obviously you need to be able to, I would say, understand, to have good judgment, to understand what moves the needle versus what actually is a noise or a waste of time. Because again, testing time is becoming very, very expensive and very short. You need to be very, very efficient. So you can become efficient by thinking, again, outside of the box, but also being able to identify, given, okay, you see the scope of this upcoming sprint, you see these 4 bullets that are coming in the sprint, these story points or new epic that is being developed. You need to understand very quickly, okay, what it's going to mean for the end user. What are the performance and architectural implications? This automated processing of product implications based on code changes is another skill that a good tester should have. You know, so knowing the architecture of the system is a mandatory thing. And I haven't talked about test automation here. I just talked about understanding the product in and out, so you can assess the impact on new features and code changes and what they mean to the end user. So these are just a subset. Obviously, there are many other skill sets in test automation, but from a tester's perspective, the ones that I mentioned in my mind are very, very important.
That's true. So that means that should be the basic one.
Yeah.
Okay. Coming to your books now, I want to know about each book you have written so far and what specifically we can learn from each book.
Cool. So by the way, all these 3 books, I've written them and I have used industry experts that I picked selectively by their domain knowledge and influencing in the industry to make sure that I'm not just sharing my own voice, I'm actually sharing the community voice in each of my books. So the first one was the Digital Quality Handbook, and it was focused mostly on mobile testing. So the fundamentals of mobile testing, how to build a mobile test plan, how to address test automation coverage on mobile devices. So it was mainly mobile with a slight of web testing. The second book, Continuous Testing for DevOps Professionals, was everything continuous testing. Everything. What is continuous testing? How to measure, how to build a continuous testing flow, how to match the different skill set and technologies into a continuous testing process. These kind of things. How to mature, the maturity model of continuous testing, because achieving continuous testing, it's not in a day or 2 days. It's a process. You need to mature it. So how do you move from one level to the next in a gradual approach? So this was the focus of my second book, again, specifically in DevOps and Agile. My last book, and it was about accelerating software quality with AI and machine learning. So it was just about AI and machine learning. So how do you take these smart, intelligent technologies around AI and machine learning and fit them into each and every phase of the DevOps pipeline? And it was not just about testing. It was about how to write code without writing code, right? No code creation, how to do code reviews with machine learning, how to do code analysis with machine learning. Okay, these are all dev focus, it's not testing. Then how to use RPA and test automation with codeless capabilities. Then move to the ops, AI ops. How do you do observability and production monitoring with AI and machine learning? So how do you actually take AI machine learning and kind of inject it into each and every phase in the development cycle to really boost your productivity and be more efficient? So this was the third book that I was focusing mostly on AI machine learning in DevOps.
Awesome, awesome. So Eran, we know that you are into blogging as well. So could you just share your screen and can make us go through your blog and see where we can find useful materials in terms of blogs?
Of course, with pleasure. So I actually changed my domain quite recently.
Could you share? Yeah, now, yes.
From continuoustesting.blog to continuoustesting.dev, because I thought that, you know, everyone, even a tester, is a developer today. Everyone is considered a developer, even if you don't write code, right? We have scriptless. So right. I decided to rename my domain to be continuous testing instead of blog to be .dev. And here I'm writing about, you know, how you can expedite web testing with Puppeteer and instant test automation technology. I wrote a blog about, let's see, this is about App9. I wrote a blog about defect detection and security prevention. This is the shift left of software application static code analysis. I'm also, in some cases, hosting guest bloggers. Most of the blogs, I would say 95% of my blogs are mine. Every now and then I get a request from you know, individuals to write a blog. So by the way, if someone in your community, Ajay, wants to write a blog in my website, I'm welcoming everyone. It's for the community. It's a free blog. It's a free resource to learn from. So this was just another example. I actually even wrote about most recommended software testing books last year. It wasn't about my books. I was talking about, you know, the Agile testing book from Lisa Crispin and Janet Gregory. I was talking about my colleague Dan Knott about hands-on mobile app testing. It's a great book. I was talking about Wolfgang Platz from Tricentis, Enterprise Continuous Testing. This is my blog. By the way, I'm also working a lot with Joe Colantonio, which is also a figure in our space. So I'm doing a lot of podcasts with him, and he's running the Automation Guild. Acceleration, you know, the book of Accelerate, The Science of Lean Software Development. This is a great book. I have it in my house and I read it. It's a great book. So these are just a subset of my blogs, but yeah, you can go to continuoustesting.dev. You can subscribe and get notified when I have a new one coming up.
Okay, I will definitely do that. Okay, so I think we have asked enough questions to you, and now I would say, like, we have reached the closure of this wonderful session given by you, and so I would just want to know from you, what's your words of wisdom for today's testers?
So I have a few things for today's testers. A, never stop exploring, never stop learning. Whatever you know today might not be relevant in a few months from today. Like developers are learning new APIs and new technologies, testers must always learn and be you know, on top of everything that is related to their environment, their industry, their technologies. New frameworks are keeping updated, new platforms, new digital trends are happening around us. So we need to be aware. So my first advice, never stop learning and continue exploring. Second, don't be afraid to try these new trends, because, you know, as developers are jumping on to any open source that they can find because they think it will save their world, testers should do the same. So I'm hearing a lot of, you know, concerns by testers. Yeah, these AI tools are going to take my job, or you know, what I'm going to do about these new features, how do I automate them? Consistently try and learn new things, whether they are driven by AI machine learning, whether there are new open source frameworks, we see today, Flutter and Playwright and Cypress. There are so many new things happening around us. Try them. Even if they are not related to your existing project, they might help the existing project in a few months from today. So spend some time, allocate 1 hour, 2 hours a week to really sharpen your skill set and learn new things.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So if anyone wants to reach out to you, and what are the way to reach out to you, like to ask questions related to software testing, DevOps, over the blogs, how can we reach out to you?
So I'm mostly available on social media, on Twitter and on LinkedIn. So search Eran Kinsbruner on Google. You will find me on my blog, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I'm writing a lot on Medium, medium.com as well. So, and I'm doing a lot of webinars. So simply either follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter and you will get everything. Subscribe to my blog, follow me on medium.com. And this is the best way to reach out to me. And, if you have questions after today's session, feel free to text me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'll be happy to continue the conversation there as well.
Cool. Okay. So, Eran, anything else you want to share before we wrap up this session?
No, I just want to say thank you, Ajay, for having me today. I had a huge pleasure, being a guest in your show, and I hope that the audience would find value in our discussion. That's
really true. And yes, definitely, I feel that people will learn a lot of things from this session about mobile testing. Plus, they will understand, yes, today's testers are not just testers, they are competing developers. So as you have said, like while explaining the contents testing.dev thing to us. So thanks, Eran, for joining us over STET and sharing your knowledge based on your experience in your tenure in IT industry so far. Hope our audience would have learned a lot of things from your sessions, and we would be expecting more such deep dive sessions in upcoming days as well. We wish you all the best for upcoming projects on which you're working on, and thanks for being part of our STET journey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eran.